We all woke up Wednesday morning in bizarro world. All of the pollsters, all of the prognosticators, all of the newscasters, everyone was wrong in anticipating what was going to happen during the election this year. For all the people who had supported Donald Trump, there was still, I think, a certain degree of shock throughout the country. There were some who felt some buyer's remorse, and there were certainly many who had concerns about what will become of this country if every campaign promise were actually fulfilled as was stated throughout the campaign. For the people who supported Secretary Clinton, and that was actually the majority of the country, she won the popular vote. Many of the people who supported Clinton went through the 5 stages of grief in the last couple of days. The first stage is denial. Many people just felt that our country could not possibly have elected a man with no political experience, on record celebrating sexual assault, endorsed by the KKK, currently involved in 20 lawsuits against him, including one for fraud, someone who thinks that Vladimir Putin is a better role model than Barack Obama. Second phase of grief is anger. We saw protests across the country in many of the big cities. People are furious that the popular vote, the will of the people, will actually be overturned by the Electoral College, which was in fact originally established by our founding fathers to give the slave states an advantage in presidential elections. And twice now in the last 20 years, we have seen the popular vote overturned by the Electoral College. The next phase is bargaining. Could we possibly persuade the Electoral College to vote with the majority of the population of the United States? Unlikely. What if California threatened to secede? There's a whole Calexit thing going on, and people are suggesting that California, which is actually one of the world's largest economies, one of the top 10 in and of itself, it has a population larger than Poland. Some are arguing that perhaps California should secede. There are many people questioning, should we move to Canada or to Israel? The next phase is depression. For many of us, it was very, very difficult to get out of bed Wednesday morning. I know personally I cried several times throughout the course of the day, especially when I heard Secretary Clinton's concession speech, when she spoke so movingly and so compassionately to the young girls of our country, talking about how they actually do have the power to accomplish their goals and fulfill their dreams, and they should recognize this not as a failure, but as a setback along the way. And she spoke so beautifully at that moment. I just only wish that she had used that voice throughout the entire campaign. It was moving. And my advice for the depression that anyone faces is the same advice that I always give to anyone suffering any kind of a loss or suffering anxiety or going through a divorce or anything like that. I say, do the things that bring you comfort. Listen to your favorite music. For many people, exercise is a fulfilling way to work through the feelings that you're having. I got up Wednesday morning, and it was difficult to get out of bed. It was difficult to put my running shoes on, and I live at the bottom of the hill. So when I start running, I have to start off slowly. But over time, as I was listening to my favorite music, and it was a beautiful day on Wednesday. It was absolutely beautiful. I felt my pace increasing. I felt myself breathing this fresh air, and by the time I returned back to my house, I was at a full-on sprint. It was actually cathartic and exhilarating and a wonderful way to celebrate life Wednesday morning. After depression, the final phase is acceptance. And let's be clear, we are all going to have to accept the fact that Donald Trump is going to become the next president of the United States. But that does not mean that anyone has to accept the fulfillment of the promises that he made throughout his campaign. I was asked on Tuesday afternoon by a friend of mine whether there were any prayers that could be said for our country at this time or for the election. And, you would think that as a rabbi I'd be able to just pull one out of my pocket, but there is no such prayer. Really, if you think about it, how would that work, right? So some people pray for Hillary Clinton, other people pray for Donald Trump, and whoever gets the most prayers wins. God just answers our beck and call. That doesn't make sense. That's not the kind of prayer that we believe in, that God actually works that way. Actually, my advice as a rabbi, honestly, is not to pray to God to fix this for us. I think, honestly, that would be like a 30-year-old asking their parents to just support them for the rest of their lives so that they don't ever have to work and support themselves. The fact of the matter is that we have a great deal of work to do, all of us, everyone in this country. When God created the universe and set Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, God gave them a responsibility to serve and preserve the world that we live in. We were told that we have to be partners in creation, that God sets up the planet and the world that we have, but that we have an important role to play. Our Torah teaches us, tzedek, tzedek, tirdov, justice shall you pursue. It doesn't say pray for justice to just happen. It says we actually have to pursue it with our lives and everything that we do. We're told that we have to be an or lagoyim, a light unto the nations, that we have to actually, through our own lives, be model exemplars of living with integrity and showing compassion for people so that we model that for everyone in the world in the hopes that it'll move other people to do those very same things. We're supposed to provide for the needy and the widow and the orphan in our country to make sure that everyone has food and, yes, health care, to make sure that everyone has the access to health care that they need to live the same quality of life as anyone else. We don't have these commandments to pray to God to provide that for us. God actually commands us to bring that about ourselves. We're not meant to pray for a deus ex machina, for God to come out of the clouds and fix everything for us. God doesn't answer those kinds of prayers. We know that from experience. We've all tried that, and it just doesn't work. It's actually, I think, honestly insulting to God. I think that the kinds of prayers that we're really meant to be experiencing through times of crisis are prayers to help ourselves do the important work that we need to do. We need to pray for the strength to endure difficult times together. We need to pray for the discernment, for the wisdom to know what to do and what choices to make during challenging times. We need to pray for the inspiration and the motivation to advocate for the values that we all hold so dear to ourselves. We need to pray for the energy to be positive, productive contributors to our society. We need to pray for the patience and the empathy to work with all people, collaboratively, constructively, building consensus. We need to pray to overcome fear in favor of love. We need to love our families a little bit deeper. We need to love our friends a bit more compassionately. We need to love ourselves and provide for ourselves and do the things that make ourselves better people in this world. And we need to love our community. We need to remember also that we have been through far worse than what happened in the United States this week. Actually, this very week was the anniversary of Kristallnacht. In 1938, Hitler permitted and endorsed and encouraged pogroms throughout Germany, in which there were over 1,000 synagogues that were destroyed throughout the country. There were 30,000 men that were rounded up and sent to concentration camps, and many of them were killed. There were 91 Jewish people over the course of 24 hours that were either killed or massacred, endorsed by the government throughout the country. There was looting, there's assault, there's physical violence, public humiliation. I mean, those were really, really difficult times, and that doesn't even compare to the massacres that we saw during the Crusades. That doesn't compare to the Inquisition and the expulsion from Spain and every other country in Europe, actually getting kicked out of a country with nothing more than you can just carry on your person, being forced to flee into the unknown. It doesn't compare with the destruction of our temples. Twice our temples were destroyed and our people were exiled into the diaspora. We've been through far worse than we're going through right now, but we always pull through everything, and we have, or otherwise we wouldn't even be here today. We always work through it together, supporting one another through the most difficult times. Every time we complete a passage of Torah, we say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazak. And that means strength, strength, and together strength. But the way that I understand that is that it's a lesson that I have to be strong for the other people in my life. And each one of those people has to be strong to help me through the difficult times. And together, we're so much more stronger, so much more powerful. There's so much more that we can accomplish. The fact of the matter, there is going to be setback after setback after setback throughout the course of our lives. But we have that prayer that we read earlier when we said Shabbat is not supposed to be a time to be, in torpor and slumber. Shabbat is supposed to be a time when we're supposed to be stirred and spurred into action. Well, every time we have a setback, it's our responsibility to keep picking ourselves back up off of our feet and working towards the things that we've got to do in this world to make this world just a little bit better, because each and every one of us contributed as much as we possibly could. Ken Yehi Ratzon.